Right, guys, welcome to Television. Today we've got Scotty McDonald and Shane Smeltz. Boys, we've had about 24 hours to digest and come on the back end of that World Cup final. It's been a long hog this World Cup. What are we thinking, guys? How are you feeling? 24 hours out from the final. Obviously, Spain just bringing it home, done it easy. What we thinking?
Firstly, I think I'm starting to get withdrawal symptoms already. I'm looking at the TV and going, "What am I going to watch now?" It's been an amazing 6 weeks. The journey of the whole tournament itself. The final, for a lot of people, if you're not a purist, was a letdown in terms of the spectacle that the World Cup's been up to this point. But yeah, that's just the way Spain play, and that's the way that they've done it throughout, and that's why they've not conceded any goals on target. Realistic, I think it was like 10 for the like Argentina didn't even have a shot on target in the final. Such a disappointing one-sided affair from that perspective. But overall, thoroughly enjoyed the whole tournament itself.
Where do we think it unravelled? It seems like Argentina battled for large periods of their campaign, right? And it felt like they just came up against a really good side, and it all just cliff edged and unravelled during that first 90 minutes. Schmelzy, your thoughts? Because yeah, it was a hard, definitely from a purist point of view, it was hard to watch a final that one sided.
Yeah, it was a little bit. It might be a bit harsh, but I just think there was a few factors that probably led into that a little bit. One, as we know, Spain are arguably the better team in terms of dominating ball possession, all the rest of it. We knew that, but the match was middle of the day. I think it was quite warm. I would have liked to have seen it maybe at night. The last World Cup, the match was undercover or in the evening, and it was a better spectacle for me. This one, I think Argentina had a less day of recovery going into it as well. And you've got Messi, he's 38, 39. They had a lot of hype around the England game as well. So they rode the high. There was a lot of emotion on that one. So to come down from that in the space of a few days and have to go again for a World Cup final, I just think everything played in Spain's hands a little bit in those small factors. And when I say small factors, they add up. And it suited Spain. They just cruised through this World Cup. They looked comfortable. No one was really talking about them until they got to the quarters. They knocked off Portugal, Belgium, France, and beat Argentina. So they've knocked off the big nations as well. So they fully deserve it.
Yeah, the best team won the tournament. There's no debate on that itself. I think for Argentina, I said it early on in the tournament. It sounds a little bit crazy because everyone watches Argentina. I'm like, when you have the ball, if you can build the game up around Messi, you get out. And if you won less, because Argentina played with 11, but really 10 without the ball, as they always have done in this tournament. And the rest of that team has done extremely well to progress and to continue to fight like that for one individual. And then you go down to 10 and you really only got 9. So Scaloni had a decision to make there. And I think it's been discussed a lot in Argentina now, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Should he have took off the great man himself at that period and that point to get to penalties and potentially the nation win in the tournament? I think it's a valid point, an argument in that sense. But if you're looking at the game before that in France, and if they can't get near anyone in that Spain team with 11, and there's always been arguments about Mbappe not doing enough off the ball as well, but he was trying, they were pressing. They've just been too good against the press. And then where they showed Argentina every time towards the line, it's a great lesson for anyone, in terms of coaches that, want to press properly and press man for man and be brave, have the high line. Again, what's underrated is Unai Simon, and that's the reason why everyone's arguing about that. Why is he the goalkeeper for Spain? It's quite clear because of the high line that he plays, and he's able to, sweep for the rest of the team who can play that high line. So it all comes together, all intertwines into one for how they play, and it works absolutely beautifully well.
Scotty,
and it's so hard to get out.
Do you think, looking at it now, I'm just reflecting on the match. Do you think Argentina came out and played? And maybe it was because they were lacking some energy going into it, and they knew they probably couldn't last. They almost played too much niggle for me, and you saw it boil over at full time as well, right? Once the match ended, I think they had too much emotion and too much niggle for that. Spain were just calm and got themselves through it.
Yeah, look, they were well aware of what they were coming up against, and just all the moaning and bitching from Argentina afterwards, going, "Oh, you spoke too much about physicality." This, that. Shut up! Like, that's part of the game. They're allowed to speak their minds as well as you are as well. Like, and if the referee's going to call, he's going to call it. The fact is, you ran a tightrope the whole tournament, particularly Enzo Fernandez, who probably potentially could have got red carded against England for his forearm in the back. There was some even more challenges in that game that they're so clever, and you've got to give it to them. And that's the way that their culture is and how they're brought up. They don't know any different, So we're saying you should act appropriately, but they don't know how to act any way but to win. That's their culture, and they'll do anything to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the aftermath and their behaviours, and then talking about the disrespect that Spain showed them. Behave. I mean, they were the ones running into England faces who restrained themselves in the semi-final, the English, and they're doing the exact same at a lot less of Spain celebrating. They're allowed to celebrate. They've just won a World Cup final. Just behave yourselves. So, yeah, there's a lot of distaste, and now I think Argentina is probably the most hated nation in terms of football out there, and it's put a disdain sort of on Messi a little bit as well after this tournament, hasn't it? It's interesting, isn't it, Scars, like how you have someone that everyone adores so much, but when they reach the pinnacle of their careers and they do everything and you've won the World Cup, that starts to go the opposite way, and people want him to fail. It's incredible
it's just
how
the nature of human nature and the nature of what the press does. This world will pump you up, it'll build you up, but as quickly as it does that, it gets that much enjoyment out of bringing it down, which is a shame. But listen, I think Messi's legacy, you love his moment in this game. I think that little moment with Cucurella as well probably didn't help the situation. It's just handbag stuff, trying to, get him a red card. Again, it's that Argentinian, like trying to get the edge wherever they can, and that's all they'll do, and they're trying to get, maybe another red card to sort of even the levels a bit. But yeah, I think it was sad to see that from one of the best players, or the best player, definitely, I think, of all time, to stooping to those lows. And it's probably, in all of what we've seen happen with, all the aggression that the Argies showed, the aftermaths of the game, all the handbags and whatnot. I agree. It's left a pretty bad taste. And I think once that whistle went and they'd been outplayed, they should have just left it. I think what was disappointing was to see those antics continue for, 5-10 minutes after the game. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think the Argies got there by having that edge about them. They found the percentages by arguing with the referee, getting stuck in, having those little niggles off the ball. I think that's what got them there in the end, especially that game against Egypt. It got them back in it. It got them over the line. So in the end, it's not enough against the quality of Spain. There's that argument, you guys have touched on it, around did they set up how they probably should have set up, or the way they set up they were destined to fail no matter what happened. I was surprised that they didn't shake it up a little bit when they went down to 10 men. Messi still played that very passive walking game, and we're all looking at it going, hey, if you keep doing this, you're defending literally, like you said, Scotty, with 9 men, and it's inevitable that you're going to concede. So I think when you look at Scaloni's interview afterwards, you saw sort of Messi, his mannerisms. I think there's an inner probably disappointment that they didn't have a better crack in this final. They just played their status quo. They've done what they've done. And I think, it's come unstuck, and there's probably a little bit of regret there.
How do they become better in that game, though? That's the biggest question mark. Like, for me, there's no answer to what Spain done to them.
And going down to 10, they're done. They were done, because you're already with Messi. We know he's the GOAT, and he's the one that they allow to do whatever he wants, and he's walking 80-90% of the match, and he just lights it up, right? They couldn't get him the ball. They just could not get him the ball. So you got another man down. You've got no one up top. There was no outlets. He was just getting more and more frustrated. And I think that's the way they thought, this is the only way to get back into this, is if we level that up, get another red card for them. And and we can bring it back on our terms a little bit. But there was no hope for them. There was no
I
hope.
get the argument, all right, if you don't play like that, who says you get to extra time, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it was just too far skewed. You know, to have 20-odd shots on goal to 0 after 90 minutes, we haven't seen a World Cup like it. So I think that's probably the disappointing part. Yeah, play your defensive, play your aggressive style, but you've got to, in a World Cup final, you've gone on this journey to get there. I think you have to have a bit more of a crack in a more positive, fluid football perspective.
You know what? That, as bad as it was, and this is what I said, it would have been daylight robbery. But they were 10 minutes away from going to pens. 10 minutes away from going to pens, and you guarantee going into extra time, they were like, we got a half time here. We've got 15 minutes. We've got to get through to pens. If they go through to pens, I think they potentially could have won it. It's just the luck of the draw. But
you mentioned something earlier about the final being at the time it was, and obviously that's for European TV commercialization within it. But what was really interesting, I mentioned this before the game, Argentina never played a game in the daytime throughout the whole tournament. All their games were evening games, and obviously that was commercial again because that aligned themselves with South American sort of primetime TV. But they never played in the day. That was the first time they played in the heat of the day. And I said, this is going to affect them because they've not got the ball for the whole game as well.
No.
Right? They were you could tell, see, after 15 minutes, they're all wanting water before even the water break. The water break was held earlier than normally what it would be if you actually go back and see it and notice.
Started on these water breaks. We'll have to listen to it for 15, 20 minutes.
Again, we'll talk. We'll get onto that in a minute. And again, I think you have to look at, this was the crazy part. And I was like, what's he doing? De La Fuente's changes within the game are ballsy, right? And it's not ballsy to him because he believes in every single squad member that he has. But to take Rodri and Laporte off in the middle of, prime game, still 0-0, games on its edge, you take your key player off. And you take your spine off.
I thought that as well. Yeah.
For two players that haven't played the whole tournament, in Zubamendi, and I can't remember who the other one was that come on. But then even taking off Fabian Ruiz at the time, I'm going, that physical. He had physical element with Rodri in there. They're dominating, bringing Pedri on. Pedri comes on, brings it attacking wise to another level because he's more on the front foot. So these changes that De La Fuente's making, Nico Williams, Ferran Torres, and then Marino as well. Scaloni did amazing against England doing that on the front foot, but you've got to give it to De La Fuente as well. The changes that he made to try and get something from the game, they worked in the end. And that's why you have a squad. And that's where probably England, for me, let themselves down in that semi-final in terms of not using their squad correctly and probably not having the right personnel, obviously, at the tournament. But that's another story for another time. But in terms of doing that, taking the player of the tournament off when the game's still in the balance, and this is where they're a proper team because you don't see Messi, you don't see Harry Kane, you don't see Ronaldo, right? You don't see all the big key players getting the hook. Right.
No, it's super brave. It's super brave. I mean, I looked at that, and my first thought was when he was walking off, I'm like, Rodri's surely he'd be taking a pen as well. So it's like, obviously he didn't go to that, and it's played out the way they wanted it. So he's brave, and it worked for him.
All right. So good recap. I mean, we could talk about it for hours, right? Again, it's always that disappointing. I look back on the final, I just think. Don't mind how they went about it, but too far skewed. And maybe I think deep down they look at it as a potential lost opportunity. They actually showed that they could turn the tune up a bit against England. So I think they had it in the locker, but against Spain, and probably could argue that last 10 minutes, whether Spain dropped back or not, they came alive. All of a sudden they're creating, Messi's getting on the ball. So, it's always a tough one, and up against Spain, it's always easy in hindsight. But what do we reckon as a World Cup as a whole? You guys have been heavily involved. You're ex-pros, ex-internationals. It'd be good to get your perspective from a footballing perspective, and B, from a showcase. USA, Mexico, Canada. I think specifically more we talk about US because they held the majority of the games. More so from a spectacle. I experienced it there, but from afar, good to get your opinions on footballing wise, how do you see the tournament? How's it progressed? And then a bit more on the tournament as a whole.
Go on, Scotty. Far away.
Well, I think, I think overall the tournament's been a huge success. I think the stadiums were amazing. The spectacle itself, the games, like we only seen one blowout in Curacao versus Germany. Let's be real. Like in terms of, we're thinking we're going to have some heavy defeats in this tournament. We didn't see that or have that be the case. Overall as well, I think it's such a successful tournament because all your big time players hit the straps. They all scored goals. They all turned up. They all performed at different stages within the tournament, which made it exciting also. And there was that many games, and you'll probably be testament to this as well, Smeltz. You go away to do, like, because we were working, doing other things for betting companies and that, and you're going away to do your match reactions, and all of a sudden there's another goal. There's another goal. Yeah. Like there was so many late goals, and there's so much drama. Within the games, never mind what was going on off the pitch, because there was lots of dramas off it as well in terms of politically, but on the pitch it delivered in so many ways, and it was such a great watch, and I can't really say I watched more than 2 bad games throughout the whole tournament, and I watched easy, probably 90 odd games, so out of the 104. So for saying that, in tournaments gone by, I couldn't really say that. So, for me, it was a huge success in terms of on the pitch. And the 48-team tournament, I was very skeptical about. I still am as a traditionalist because I still feel that it was filtered down and the goals that were scored. If you look at Messi, right, overall, and he scored 8 goals in this tournament, and you look at the last tournament, you only need to look at the teams he scored against. He's not scored against many top 20 sides.
How many hat-tricks was there in that? How many hat-tricks was there in that 8? Was it 1 or 2?
One, I think, from last. No, two.
He got a double, didn't he?
2. Yeah, I think there's 2. I think there was one against Nigeria or someone else in a pre. I just seen it come up yesterday. Someone put it up on social. I was like, really? That's the teams he scored against at a World Cup? And when you look at it like that, you're going to go, it's kind of devaluing it a little bit because it's not the prime names that you're used to seeing in years gone by, from when it was 16 teams to 24 to 32, and now we're at that 48. Is the gaps going to get bigger where there is far more goals? Again, the game evolves, it changes. But it was pleasing to see so many goals. We've got to admit that.
Yeah, I think the football got better as the tournament went on. I liked the group stage. I think back end of the group stage, for me, got a little bit flat because you had a few games there where it was almost for nothing. And I think they need to look at that and maybe change that rule. For me, it's got to be on goal difference, not head to head. I don't think that really worked. But then as soon as you went into the next round, so round of 32, which used to be the old round of 16, it was excitement and you got double the matches, right? It's knockout. It was brilliant. And I think it ramped right the way through. Semis were great. Quarters were great. Final a little bit disappointing. That's the only thing for me. But all in all, the football was great. Have to give it a big tick. I think stadiums, watching it from here, stadiums, atmosphere was brilliant. I think all the NFL stadiums, I mean, what country can produce that? So massive tick in that regard. I think the US, it boiled over a little bit with their entertainment side of things. I think that's the only thing. I mean, having a World Cup final, how long was that break at halftime?
30 minutes.
That, for me, that is ridiculous. You're killing the game a little bit there. I mean, players were waiting in the tunnel. It looked like they needed to go and do another warm up. So little things like that. Obviously, Scars, you don't get me going about the drinks breaks again.
They're waiting for the Muppets to come off, mate.
Yeah, I know.
Mate, love that.
You had to have a laugh, though. Look, have a big R9 sitting there in his tracksuit. He looked stiff as anything, didn't he?
I think one of my little ones was like, why does Ronaldo look so fat? I'm like, he's all right. He's all right. I don't know. I think,
he looked awkward, didn't he? He was just standing there like that.
But that's the US, isn't it? That's America for you, supersizing everything. So that's the only thing for me I didn't really like. But I think if you go to, next World Cups, next nations, I don't think they'll quite do those things. So maybe it's a
I think when I look at it to Qatar, I mean, the quality of the football in Qatar was phenomenal. I think for a couple of reasons. We had that stadiums were the temps were controlled, number one, and number two, I think we saw that mid-season players still at their prime. I mean, you guys have both played at the top level, and you have a different way about yourself mid-season compared to end of season. I think that played a big part in the quality of football at Qatar being so good. And I think at this World Cup we saw a lot more teams be strategic in their transition. We're seeing a lot of low blocks and a lot of like, hey, we're going to push for 10 minutes and then sit off, which it created a different type of football in this World Cup. But I think as a whole, I agree with you guys. It's been excellent from a spectacle. Listen, I experienced four of the stadiums: Vancouver, Seattle, Dallas. What was the other one? Seattle, Vancouver, Dallas, and San Fran, and all of them are exceptional. And yes, you're in the stadium. You've got the sort of like the noise that generates within those stadiums, which is like they put a lot of time and effort in the US on how the noise is generated and contained within the stadiums. And I think Seattle's regarded as one of the best in the world, and we definitely felt that against the US for that Aussie game. And in terms of the US piling it on, they definitely piled it on. Apache helicopters coming over, and to be there live was pretty specky. But it's the other things, the little things that the US do great. You're never lining up for a beer. You're never lining up for food. You can order drinks and food and stuff to your seats. They really do it well. We talk a lot over here about, Melbourne being the sporting capital of the world, and all this sort of rubbish. We're so far off it. The amount of money that they put into infrastructure, behind the scenes, hospitality, etc., is second to none. And I think, if you speak to anyone that was at the World Cup, and even from the television abroad, you can see how that conveys itself. So I think big thumbs up to the US, and Canada and Mexico did their part, but big one for US putting it on. It's been a spectacle.
Yeah.
Scott, what was the moment for you? I haven't asked you. What was the moment you obviously got back not that long ago? The moment for you, obviously following the Socceroos. What was the moment you thought, this is gold? I'm following. I'm in the World Cup here. Inside the stadium or outside the stadium? Was there a moment that you probably got set in your mind as the memory of the time?
I think there's two parts of it, and I don't know. You guys probably playing in your prime at the top level internationally. Probably didn't get a chance. I did in 2006, being in the supporter tier, sort of pre-game build-up and all that sort of stuff. But I think that's where the special moments happen. You've got 10, 15,000 Aussies. You're converging onto a city. You're taking over streets. You're taking over bars. Everyone's up for it. And you really see that Aussie mentality coming out. And, we are very unique. Us Australians, the way we go about, the way we carry ourselves, slightly Bogan-esque in a way. We're pretty brash and we're pretty out there, but also respectful in a way. So I think those pre-game moments, for me, with having my kids there, I think they're sort of moments that you never forget as a fan when you put your fan hat on. So they for me were a highlight, and then I think against that game against Turkey in Vancouver, I think we still underestimate how tough of a task that was. I still think Turkey were the best team in that group by a mile. I think they still, when you look at the stats and everything came out of their 3 games, I still think they deserve to probably get through. So I think the magnitude, and it's as big as, I think that one was as big as Japan in 2006 in terms of backs against the wall. That was a huge step forward in that World Cup for us. So for me, that's the highlight from a football perspective. That against Turkey, because we lose that, and we're probably in trouble. And then it's all the background stuff. Meeting the Aussies, it's full on. So that's a lot of fun. Probably the low point was seeing beach come off, I think, for me. From an Aussie perspective as a fan, I don't get the logic. I will never get the logic of it, especially as the next keeper. So probably disappointing on a few fronts to see how that change happened and then how it evolved. But as a whole, I think we've got to be proud of ourselves as a nation, how we represented ourselves on and off the park. And I think there's a big talk now of how we capitalise on that, right? So we all know we're in the game, we're active in the game here. Everyone gets on the bandwagons involved every 4 years, but then we come off it and we go back into an A-League that's underperforming. We go into a disjointed academy and grassroots system. So there's a lot that, now you take a breath after the World Cup, and it'll be good to get your guys' opinions on it to go, what happens next? We talk about it every 4 years, and it's like it becomes stagnant after the fact. But yeah, and Scotty, you've played it. You've played in the UK. I was there, seeing some of the amazing stuff you did over there, and then even when I went to coaching, seeing the strides until you've been on the backside of academies and facilities in the UK, you don't really understand how far behind we are here in Australia. And it's like we're not really progressing at a rate that justifies what the game should be doing and the interest and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, what are your views on that, Scotty? Where do we go from here?
I think it's always difficult because we are so similar to America in a lot of ways and how they're trying to reform. And there's been a lot of talk about the pay-to-play system once again off the back of this tournament for them. There's always a reset moment every 4 years for us as a nation going, right, what can we do? I think it was probably more celebrated 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago in Qatar when we made it to the round of 16 because no one expected it. In terms of the new format, everyone was hoping and we got to that point. And then the disappointment of how we ended up, obviously, going out in the end, where people felt a little bit probably like Argentina. We didn't really put our best foot forward in that game. But in terms of moving forward as a nation, it's always the challenging part now because there's a lot of moving parts, as we all know, to every single state and federation as an FA, and how much financially we actually do have to play with. From a commercial standpoint, we need to do more. We need to get our game out there more. We need to put it on the front foot. There needs to be more of a connectivity streamlined the whole way from top to bottom. But again, all these things that we're saying, it's not new things that haven't been said before. It's how do we make our product look better to the general public, and particularly our own up and coming grassroots players and families to come and watch our elite level of our game in this nation and make it more entertaining and more exciting. I think there is things that we probably could take from America to try and bring more of an entertainment package to these games, because we're not seeing the numbers that we would evidently like at the games. And arguably until certain teams can spend more money to attract a bigger type of player, like I know you were on with William Gallas the other day, and some of the names that we've had over the course of the years in the A-League, which we're at a reset time where we're more about development and bringing players in, which is absolutely fine. But there's no real stalwart names out there to attract people to come to the game. So there needs to be a little bit more work done on the ground from the A-League clubs, from the FA as well, to attract more people to come and watch games at the A-League. It's very tough, though, when we have everything, we have everything televised as well, right? Because everything's at the touch of a button now. Who really wants to, get off the seat of their couch to go and watch an A-League game, or to go on a, stadium, seat to watch a game in the middle of the heat?
I don't know.
There's a lot of different things with that.
I mean, you hear that one, like the free to wear, you can watch anything on Paramount, and then specifically, I think our biggest right now, and in this country, I think our biggest struggle is our domestic league, right? The A-League, and we look at it across the board.
Yep.
It is struggling, and also when you look at a whole lot of different data points, it's struggling, and I think people don't appreciate enough how important the A-League is to, number one, youth development, and number two, to football and growth in this country. Without the A-League, we don't have kids like Nesta coming through. We don't have the Harringtons coming through. And it really creates a block for progress for these young kids in the game. Now, and I agree, I think the clubs have a lot to answer for. I think the clubs need to be doing a lot more.
Yeah.
I think the FFA need to do a lot more. I think that every footballing member of the community has a obligation now to support what's critical to football in this country. And there's no excuse. Tickets are cheap. Stadiums are generally quite good in this country when you look at it as a whole. We've got some of them you could argue are slightly too large, but really our stadiums are fantastic as a whole. And I think there just needs to be that sort of obligation put on the general public to support what is critical to football in this country.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I think, like Scotty said, I think all these things have been discussed for how many years. This is the big debate. I mean, as I'm listening to you guys talk, I'm thinking to myself, I think we need to think, like, where do we actually want to see it? What do we feel like we're missing out on? Is it filled stadiums? Is it more money in the game? What is it? Because I think we need to look at that and go, all right, that's our genuine target. That's a realistic target or not. I think where the game was in the A-League, for example, the domestic league, where it was when I was playing in it years ago, I think it was in a stronger position than it is now. That's no argument. Clubs are all crying out financial. We've got restrictions on them now as well in terms of what they can spend. So there's so many like negative parts to it, but it needs to be. I mean, we're a big country. We're not the biggest population as well. We've always tried to, years ago, we always said, yeah, we're trying to marry in with or run alongside what the US do, right? With salary caps and they've just gone tenfold more than us in terms of sponsorship. Obviously they've got the population, but they've also got the battle against other sports like we do here. I mean, are we trying to pull AFL and rugby league supporters over, or we've got enough supporters to come in and fill stadiums ourselves, which I think we do. So there's so many discussion points, but I just think it needs an injection of money, but the product's got to be better to get that across.
No, see, I disagree. Yeah. I disagree with the product needs to be better. I think the product is more than capable of providing a spectacle, right?
Yes.
I think what happens is when you go to a club like Brisbane and you've got 2,000 people in a 40,000 seater stadium or 50,000 seater stadium, no matter who you play there, you could play Barcelona, Real Madrid. It takes the shine and it takes the atmosphere away from the games. The football is great and enjoyed because of the atmosphere part of it, right? So it's critical to get bums on seats. What a bums on seats does, but if you get 10,000 people at a game that's got 15,000 seater capacity, then all of a sudden you draw an extra 3,000 or 4,000, and then all of a sudden you get a sponsor or a commercial partner rocks up to a stadium that's relatively full. You've got a good atmosphere. All of a sudden they want to get involved, right? So it's sort of like it snowballs after that. So there's got to be a big emphasis on getting people to games. We've seen it. Yes, MLS have really done a lot of work to get the vibes at games, to get the people on seats, and they're doing it. Premier League did it, 30 years ago, something like that now, maybe more. There was a big emphasis on, keeping the atmosphere. And they still do little things to make sure that they get, stadiums full, and they're always working on it. So I think that's a big one for us. It then snowballs all the other bits, the commercial, the watchability on TV, the money that comes into the game. I think it's critical. When we talk about pulling people away from AFL, rugby, etc., I think all you need to do is step foot into some of the most sort of elite. You go to these elite schools in Australia, right, where it's all about cricket and AFL, and the history of AFL and that really Aussie mentality. I'm telling you now, these schools, and I know because my kids go to one of them. They're struggling to fill AFL teams at young school, junior primary, middle primary. They're struggling to fill AFL teams, but they can't find enough coaches to fulfill football teams. So the interest is there. I don't think we've seen this whole full generation come through where they're obviously exposed to football across the board. It's how do we get them to the game, get them passionate about local football, get them passionate about making football in Australia jump to the next level. And I think that energy will just build and build.
The problem is identity, right? In terms of each and every one of these clubs. Now, Scars, where it's different is Adelaide's a little bit smaller. You'll agree with me on this in terms of where Adelaide can identify with their younger sort of pool of players, clubs. I don't know what the relationship is with A-League and NPL clubs. That's always a difficult one. That's quite fractious in many states along the way. But in terms of they understand there has to be a clear pathway and a dream sold to the youngest generation that we have and to the parents and to the players, but also to get out there amongst the community as well. As clubs, players need to do more. Commercial people at clubs probably need to do more. I'll give you a great example, right? So I was at Brisbane Roar when I was playing, and we went to Redcliffe Stadium, which is called the KO Stadium now, for instance. We had promoted that there was going to be, half-hour games for the season there, blah, blah, blah. We never trained out there. We never did anything out there. We just went there for our games, and that was it. We didn't once go to any local community spaces within there as players or as managers, or go to schools, put sessions on. I'm sorry, but that needs to happen now. That's where you're at, and people need to identify with you. They're not identifying with you because there's no clear connection, contact point there. And obviously from a commercial standpoint, in terms of TV-wise, Smeltzy, when you were playing, you're on prime time. You're on Fox Sports. Everyone has Foxtel, right? So it's the one place you go to watch all your sport. So regardless if you like football or not, it was seen. There was interviews, Fox Sports News. It was consistently rolling. The football was always getting a voice. That voice is now gone.
Even the way they ran it then. So you would tap into your Premier League supporters as well, right? Because a Premier League supporter that supports Man United, Arsenal, Man City, whoever, they would watch the A-League before it, and it would just roll on over to the Premier League all in one channel.
Yep.
So now
this is.
you
have no control over that. That's
we've
the problem.
divided the game up a little bit.
And that's the thing, right? So like you've got the problem is there's so many different streaming systems. The A-League needs to support its teams, its clubs, its finances. So they have to go where the best deal is. However, for football to thrive in this country, every single league and competition needs to be under the one platform. If it was all under the one platform with the A-League being a part of all those platforms, there's far more visual on it. There's far more interest in it because it's there. Everyone's got it. It's at their hand. When you've got a separate entity of Paramount only showing the A-League and some FA Cup games or this, that, the next, and then you've got Champions League and English Premier League over here and here, what are you going to pick? Naturally, what are people in their household going to pick? They're not going to go that way. So strategically for the APL, they need to look at that, the bigger vision rather than the short one all the time. And this is where we always go wrong because we need the finances. So they're stuck in a rabbit hole in a sense as well, because if we don't have those finances, how do we continue to survive, to pay salaries, meet the quota for the cap? So they're always chasing their tail, and that's the biggest problem we have.
Well, the fixtures came out, right? Do you know? Do we know? Don't we know? My kids definitely don't know.
No.
But I tell you what, they know when the Premier League fixtures come out because plastered everywhere. It's made a big deal of. So yeah, listen. I think I agree with you.
Here's the big one, Scotty. Can I ask you this one? This is interesting for me. You're talking about like pathways and kids, what they dream for, right? When they're young. So I grew up here in this state as where we live.
Yeah.
And we had, it wasn't the A League, it was the old NSL. So we had Brisbane Strikers. And when I was, so you got a young lad now, Callum was, what was he, 13, 14?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
he's 14, yeah.
my question is he, we've only got the Raw, one professional club in this state. Is he like dying to play for the Raw, for example? I mean, when I was young, when I was his age, there was
No.
Brisbane Strikers in the old NSL, which you could argue not as big as the A League, but there was Brisbane Strikers in the old NSL. Frank Farina was the number 9. He was almost player coach at that time. I went to like clinics around here, and I missed out on something. He ended up bringing a signed NSL Brisbane Strikers jersey, and I was like, I got that feeling. I was dying to play for Brisbane Strikers when I was Callum's age. So it's like, have we lost something? Like, for me, all the kids in the state should be wanting to play for Raw, and I'm not sure that's the case.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think the real struggle is there's always conflicts of interest within we don't even have an A-League academy now in Queensland. NPL clubs and their systems and what they're asked to do as gold-rated clubs, and then where is the actual, talent ID selection process, and where does that take you, and how's it going? Because it's been ever changing, that model, particularly in Queensland for the last couple of years also. So to ask a young 12, 13, 14-year-old, what's your pathway? How do you get to the top? How is it? What I clearly could write out for you, and which I did. I think my mum still got it. I wrote it under one of these pads that I had on my desk of my goals and where I needed to get to, quite crazily, and step by step, which selection teams I needed to make to go to the next stages: regional, state, Institute of Sport, so your local institute, your Australian institute, Joey's. And that was kind of, and then NSL or overseas, right? That was, I think we're more, which is great. I think it is. I think a weaker A-League actually makes players go abroad and stay abroad now. And there's more sort of envision in line with where my head was of need to get overseas to make it as a professional if you want to stay in this game. I think we're going back to that again in a lot of senses, because the A-League has gone a little bit on the weaker side, and it is, for me right now, we're not on par with it, but we're getting to that point where it's NSL back end days with A-League right now. That's where we're kind of getting to, but we're still on more of a professional somewhat level. Is it a case that it should be given all back to the state federations on youth development, and A-League focuses on A-League because that's essentially majority of them all they can afford to actually do? Is a men's system / because they've got a female sector as well that we have to have now, and then everything goes back to state federation models like Queensland are now doing. I think WA is similar because Glory doesn't do it. I think it's same in Adelaide, Scarce, is that right?
Like on your point earlier, Adelaide's much smaller than Queensland, so easy to manage, right? So
correct. Yeah, and WA's got that challenge too.
I mean, this is probably a topic of convo that we could talk for hours on, sort of like the junior pathway and how disjointed it is on so many different levels. But I think to answer your question, Schmeltzy, I think every kid, and I know because I've got 4 boys, every kid wants to have a hero, right? And my kids love it. They love going to Adelaide United games. They love getting on the pitch and trying to get signatures. And they just love that, the vibe of all that, right? I've never met a kid that doesn't. But I also put the time and effort into exposing my kids to going to games, showing the importance of it. So I think there's almost a responsibility on the parents. And it's so easy to just go, no, I'm just going to stay home and chuck the Barbie on and watch the game on TV. But you don't get the same vibe, you don't get the same feeling, And so I think there's a importance on parents to show their kids, to take them to live sport, and then on the flip side, there's an importance on the clubs to provide an environment that facilitates that for the kids, where the kids they're coming to meet their heroes. Like my kids love it. I mean, my wife posted a video of my son meeting Nesta when he was playing at Adelaide United, and got his autograph at the game, and now he's a couple of years on. He got his shirt at the fence at the Socceroos, and just how excited he is. And now for him, that shirt is everything. So you guys,
It was Scars. I get it, but this is my point though. Talking about, I mean, you played at Barnsley, right? You know the people of Barnsley. They've got one option on the weekend, and that's go and watch Barnsley. That you've got 36ers, Crows, Port Adelaide. You got all these clubs, professional clubs that are arguably doing a lot better. Beach, barbecue, Barossa. You can do whatever you like on a weekend. I don't think, and I don't want it to be this way, but we've got so much choice.
No, but I think
and 9 times out of 10, the choice is not to go and spend that money for the family and go watch an A-League game.
The spending money is going to football in this country is the cheap part, right? I still think if you give the kids the option, and I think maybe it comes down to lazy parenting, and we can all be guilty of lazy parenting every now and then, right? Because life's busy, but I think when you ask a kid, what do you want to do? Do you want to go to live sport, or do you want to, go to the Barossa or go to the beach or go to that? They want to go and watch their idols play live. But quite often there's the fact that they don't know that the game's on. They start doing their thing. So again, it becomes a point, and you touched on it, Scotty. It's the clubs being in contact and advertising what's happening. It's the clubs being active with the local community, which is your local clubs, right? So the kids start to know the characters of the game here. And that's the big thing. If you don't know the players, what are you going to tie to? What's going to be the pull for the young kids? So I think, and let me tell you, when a kid starts to know, then they're nagging at the parent, hey, I want to go watch Adelaide. I want to go and see this player. Then inevitably, as a parent, you take them. And actually, when you're there and the stadium's full, you enjoy it. When I go watch a Brisbane game and there's 1,000 people, I don't enjoy it. No matter what. No. And I love football at every level. But when you're there, it's almost frustrating, right? And you can say the same about a lot of clubs in the A-League, but not just Brisbane. But I'm telling you, when I go to not because I'm an ex-Adelaide United player, but when I go to a Coopers game, and Scotty, you've been there, right? Smeltz, you've been there. It's because there's an atmosphere, because there's a vibe.
Atmosphere.
You actually enjoyed it. And it could be a far inferior product compared to another game elsewhere. But it's the atmosphere that creates the product. And that's why I think clubs need to look at membership. I laugh, you go into, and Adelaide United, as good as they're doing, you still laugh, their membership at the moment, you look at their membership, they're talking about 5, 6, 7,000 members. Collingwood, 100,000, 120,000. And it's how do they look at those KPIs, get those metrics up, which gets bums on seats, which then brings more people. And like I've said earlier, it keeps snowballing. So, I think that's got to be the focus is getting our domestic league up. And yes, a whole other discussion around our disjointed, everyone doing their own thing, junior pathway. Yeah. But I hope that on the back end of this, it needs money and it needs the right people to really push it. Otherwise, you're right. We're going to turn into the old NSL. And if you guys remember the last Smeltz, me and you played in it, right? I don't know if you were still in it, Scotty, or what you were doing, or you were overseas already, but
I was Gippsland Falcons. I was Gippsland Falcons for year 99. My debut was actually against Adelaide City. Okay. Ivanovic and Tobin.
So that's probably just before it really started to cliff edge, right? But if you look at those NSL days, 2001, 2002, 2003, Adelaide United was an exception. And I don't know why more clubs just follow that blueprint. Adelaide United have almost deviated away from the blueprint that got them so successful to start with. But the NSL was a disaster. You had 1,000 people, 2,000 people at games. The whole ethic thing was an issue. But if we're not careful, the A-League becomes a big, big problem. And what are we going to do? Reinvent it again?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. And all this talk about bringing like the old ethnic clubs back, that's going to solve our problem. I'm telling you, that's not going to solve our problem. The same issues will resurface if we don't solve the fundamental problems that we've just spoke about. But hey, hold for another chat, guys. We could talk for days on it.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of how we could restructure it, what to create more money into the game, like you said there, Scars, is like owners need to be given the opportunity to be able to have equity in the game. Like they have to be able to own potentially their own stadia, their own training grounds, where they actually own something, and there's money behind what they're actually investing, rather than just putting money down the toilet, which is you're paying to go into government stadia and just lease things, lease training grounds. Like it's a big problem. It's not how you do business. It's not how if you're in the real world.
Well, Scotty, how long is this?
It's crazy.
This league's what, 20 odd years old, the A League, and you still look at it. I mean, maybe there's one or two clubs that own some facilities,
they don't.
like you said. But who?
No, they don't. They don't.
If you're,
they lease.
If you're selling a club overseas, what are you selling? I still don't get it.
Well,
a piece of paper that says you've got a license.
When you're selling sporting franchises, it's probably more than the asset. It's the sort of data and the reach that it brings. That's what you're selling in a football club and any sporting organisation. And there's actually some really good metrics around the value of sporting organisations. I know it's something like 6 times revenue if you're an entity that is breaking even or just making a profit. Problem in the A-League is nobody makes a profit. And we're actually starting to see that, and I scratched my head with it. The NBL, we're seeing franchises sell for big money because they're actually turning a slight profit. They've got full stadiums, and they're the metrics that get you money. And again, we could talk a whole another segment on the commercialisation of the game, but unfortunately, we're nowhere near it because we've got the APLs that smelt a whole heap of money with this whole Silver Lake issue, which in essence what they were trying to do was inject some money to, push the game and push the numbers. But I think they pushed in the wrong areas. They neglected the grassroots, and then you've got clubs that don't have bums on seats and empty stadiums. But those franchises don't sell, unfortunately. So. And then you've got the TV viewing. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, TV viewing doubles if we fill stadiums or get crowds that are substantial enough to create an atmosphere in stadiums. So there's a whole lot of work to do. Scotty, I agree with you 100%. It starts at grassroots. It starts at the clubs doing the stuff that they don't want to do and they don't want to do consistently. They do it on and off. They do it sort of intermittently. But it's got to be a full-blown understanding that they have to do the stuff that really, it's the hard work.
And that's where AFL kills everyone on it. They're amazing.
Yeah, but AFL, if you look at it like a government, right? AFL is top-down, feeding money down to grassroots to the point where kids can go and play. They can go and play a semester of footy and pay $100 or something, and they get a top and this and that, right? So if I'm a member and I'm a supporter of AFL, I'm quite happy with my government, my leaders of my game, right? So what you have in football in this country is you have the flip side, right? So you have our leaders, our government organisation, pulling fees from bottom up, not feeding down. So we're taking our money, then the clubs are getting their players taken away from them, and then you're not getting supported, and you're not getting on primetime TV. So it feels like the mums and dads, which the reality is they are funding the game. Of course, you're going to be disgruntled with your leadership group.
They're getting screwed.
It's inevitable that you're going to have this resentment, disgruntled, all these negative vibes around a system that is bottom feeding top. It's so that's the difference between AFL and they're smarter. AFL is smarter. They've got it all. They've got the media stitched up. They've got the money. And we make it easy for them. So I think we've got an opportunity to change it. We're talking on the back end of this World Cup. We've got an opportunity to change it, but it's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of the right people, and egos need to go from a lot of these clubs and a lot of the points in the game. Everyone needs to band together. So that's going to be the hardest bit. But let's see, hey? Now, I think one thing that stood out from this World Cup, And specifically for Australia, right? We look at our games and we're scratching. We're playing Nesta as a winger, as a 9. We're looking who's going to be our next goal scorer. And if we're talking as Australians and Kiwis, I think Kiwi is probably in a better position from a number 9 perspective with Wood there. But I mean, you two of the most prolific and gifted footballers that we've seen in Australia and New Zealand over the last 20 years. And I think Schmeltz, you've done had an amazing career internationally and both in the A-League. And Scotty, the stuff that you did in Europe, I still don't think this country, and I know when you go to Queensland, and I don't think people quite understand and appreciate the levels that you got to and what you did. I bet you when you go to Scotland, right, you see it and you feel it because it's over there. They understand the magnitude of what you did. But where are we looking at now with, is it an issue with grassroots? Why are we not producing that sort of number 9 that we always knew? Your Vidukas, your Kales, even your Kules being able to pitch in as a 9. Where's it all going?
I think it even goes even further than just 9s, though, Scuss. Like, I was talking to one of my coaches yesterday about it as well as I've talked about this time and again to Smeltzy, is that, did you have mini goals when you were growing up? Did you ever see a set of mini goals anywhere?
No.
What did you?
No.
No. Yeah, right. Okay. So, what did you use for goals? If you didn't have goals, what did you use? Was it cones? Probably at training. Probably cones, wasn't it? Set out, and would they be the size of a mini goal, or would they be proper size of a goal? Be a proper size of the goal, wouldn't it? For as basic and as stupid as this sounds, Smeltz, you're laughing at me. It's
No, I know. Yeah,
it's pretty obvious, isn't it? Right. So you're getting kids to fantasize about like passing a ball into a mini goal, right? We're not, and everything's built possession-based things and going scoring a mini goal. Everything's not goal-scoring based or hitting the net or beating a keeper. There's not enough training based around scoring goals. And this is where we're going to see an influx of it again because Spain have won the World Cup and possession, tiki-taka, this, that, the next. But there isn't a lot of training, and I'm susceptible to it as well now in my role, where we're actually getting the kids enough minutes scoring goals. And every academy team at the moment that we see really struggles to score goals. And it's no coincidence that's because of probably the way that they've been trained, and also the popularity of how Messi's been around for so long and whatnot, that no one wanted to be a 9 for a lot of people. I want to be a 10. Where do you want to play 10? Can I play 10? All these young kids, you see it like from the ages of 9 to 12. No one wants to be a centre forward anymore. Centre forward was the guy who was the main man to score the goals. Not anymore. It's the 10. The 10's the main man, not the 9. So again, we're going. The game changes and evolves all the time.
The real art of scoring goals, and not just scoring goals, but that position of the 9 has been diluted, I think, worldwide. I mean, if you look at even this World Cup, so yes, okay, you got Haaland, you got Kane, and there's a few other probably as your traditional number 9s, but you've got a lot of players that aren't necessarily real traditional 9s, but playing in that position. Look back at World Cup '98. Yeah, I'll read you just a few names from that list. World Cup '98. Look at the number 9s: Ronaldo, Batistuta, Alan Shearer, Bierhoff, Christian Vieri, Suka, Kluivert, Marcelo Salas. These are just the 9s at that World Cup. 2006, Klose, Luca Toni, Wayne Rooney, Thierry Henry, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Crespo, Drogba, Zlatan. Like that, it's been diluted. The game has changed a little bit.
Yeah,
and I think we need to find a way. You're right. It starts with grass levels and how we train them and who they're looking up to. All these things are factors, but we need to try and bring out, because you look at Chris Wood goes for the All Whites. Who's the next 9? Who is the real 9 for the Socceroos? Whereas you go back to these areas that we're talking about, Scotty, your era, my era, there was always 2, 3, 4, 5 that could play that position.
look at the goal scoring charts in the A-League this year. You only need to look at that. Top scorer was like 11 goals or 12 goals or something as ridiculous as that. It's the lowest ever.
Ivanovic, who missed probably 5-6 games through internationals and injury and suspension and whatnot. So, yeah, it is hard to pinpoint, like it's hard to look at the A-League and go, who's our young, prolific number 9 coming through?
No. Again, we don't coach it, we don't train it, we don't want to build it around a 9. We don't play into 9s anymore. The game's evolved. Pep created a cheat code, and ever since then, everyone wanted to copy it, right? And we're seeing it come around again. And you've got Oyarzabal playing, who isn't a 9, really, is he? He's not an out-and-out number 9. He drops in. Harry Kane's now dropping in. Mbappe doesn't play up against people. He drifts and plays here and there and walks around. Like a striker today, if you said make a run in the channel, they'd look at you with square eyes and go, what are you talking about? What's the channel? Right? You know what I mean? Like it's not there for them. Or anticipation, gamble, getting in the 6-yard box. I say if you want to score goals, get inside the 6-yard box. That's not changed, but do you find it? Have you, it's very, very rare that I see someone that is so hungry to score goals. And if you do, you've got to wrap them up and keep them in cotton wool and go, right, you're with me for the rest of the days here till we'll grow the rest of it. Because that hunger, that desire isn't there anymore, because everyone wants the ball, right? And in modern game, even more so. I wanted the ball as a 9, so did you, because it was more, we play through, to be more fashionable and modern, play through 2 lines rather than 1, right? And that was over or through. Or around, it didn't matter, right? So, and if you weren't getting it, you were demanding it because you wanted to get in the game. Strikers now are built differently, where they don't. Yeah,
but like you just
said
there, Scotty, I agree. Like, yes, I wanted the ball, but I think I wanted to score goals. More importantly, do you know what I mean? I think that was the main thing. So I didn't care if my team played me in deep. I didn't care about coming in deep to get on touches. Yes, you do that if you're not involved in the game naturally, but I wanted good service. I wanted to score goals. I wanted to leave the pitch with a goal to my name. That was, and I think that is what we've got to create with the young players, that real hunger to score goals.
We see that lacking, don't we, with a lot of our kids, and you got to constantly build it in and go, guys, it's how you influence the game. It's you need to come away with assists and goals. If you want to, especially getting ahead to go abroad, you've got to be getting those stats on. And a lot of these kids don't have that. And I think it goes back to your point, Scotty. It's like they want to play the ticky-tacky. They want to do the nice stuff on the ball. I want to do a little dummy. But none of that matters unless you're putting the ball back.
Yeah, Scotty, what we spoke about the other day, this is interesting. So this is not strikers, this is wingers, right? So you think of a winger these days. Anyone who thinks of a winger, you think of, right, receiving the ball, beating your man, going byline and cutting the ball back or crossing, right? We were talking all going inside now.
Well, that's what they all do now. They don't go in. They don't go outside anymore. Everything's in the inside.
So we're looking at as strikers and we're going, so what is your favorite ball to receive as a striker? It's the slightly deeper cross, not byline. So it's a lofted ball to the back or a cutback. It's a deeper cross, the old Beckham whip, where you don't even beat a man and you whip it into an area we spoke about the other day. And you can get off shoulders, you can go near post, you can finish in between a ball in between goalkeeper and centre back, whipped in, and go and score goals. You don't see enough of that anymore.
So from the age of 9 to the age of being in NPL academies till you're 18, how many crossing and finishing drills do you think are put on throughout the season?
Not many. You don't see many.
Not many.
Think, I've got kids playing NPL clubs and whatnot, and you go around. You don't see too many balls flying. You don't see keepers in goals. It's very. I agree with you. It's very rare.
You know what else you don't see?
Goalies are left. Goalies are over there somewhere, or they're actually doing the passing drills with you rather than actually being in the goal and having shots at them.
Go and watch an A-League session as well and see how many individual strikers are working on finishing themselves. You don't see it. You don't see it.
And then if you want to do extra, then it's like, oh, be careful how much you're doing, blah 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 blah. But the problem is, I think, to go back to your question, I think kids still understand and know about the metrics you're talking about and want to score goals. and want to have assists. It's the fact that they don't have the end product to be able to deliver it. And that goes back to then the basics of the training and the minutes of continuous repetition. And also then it goes back to the point of mentality then after that, that if you have a kid and he scores 1 goal on the weekend, he's buzzing. He's happy because he scored. You know, he's just happy that he scored. Right? You wanted 2, you wanted 3, you wanted 4, you wanted 5. They scored 10 goals in their season. They've done a good job. We were 30, 40, 50. Right? And I'm trying to explain this and build this even in my own son. It's like there's a happy medium of challenging the individual and playing them up a level and having the challenge of then more difficult opponents to play against to score goals. But the repetition in a pressurized situation and moment that you can't replicate outside of a match scenario and scoring goals in those scenarios rather than in the training scenarios, that's your key practice points. But to do it in front of other people, proper 11v11 competition and a goalkeeper, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 40, 50 goals, right, becomes second nature, right? As soon as you take that away from them, and this is where someone does really well and we want to take the good parts away from them to challenge them further, but we forget that they actually still need to continuously have those success rates and those good parts. Oh, yeah, but if he's good enough, he'll still score goals at the next. Yeah, okay, well, let's see. But if that's not happening, then how do we get that metric back for them so they're continuously doing that to then have the want, the feel, the need, the hunger to be an out-and-out goal scorer? Because if you're only scoring 10 goals as a 14, 15, 16-year-old, you're not going to be. You're not going to. No, you're not going to be that guy when you get to 18, 19. You might have a purple patch, like people.
So
have,
how do you, you've been a coach, Scotty, in recent times? How do you teach young kids once they get to senior level, professional level, to be elite with the head? Because that's a dying art for me for a long time. So whether it's nod downs, flick ons, awareness, so much with the head, it's an art that has absolutely died.
Yeah, again, like they just don't have enough repetition of it, and that's the biggest problem. Like if you drop one in, I said to someone, when have you last time in our academy seen a striker flick the ball on for anyone? I couldn't even count on one hand how many times I've seen one of my 9s flick the ball on for one of his teammates this season. You know, or a long balls came up. Okay, we don't play necessarily that type of football anyway because everything's, you know, more pushed upon play it on the floor, play around, don't play. Or
yeah, but that's my point though. But if you're an elite player here and you're going to go to Europe, you're expected to be elite with your head as well.
Yep. And again, it's not even necessarily. So my best drill, even for me as a centre forward, was Gordon Strachan used to do this one where you would start sort of just outside the 18. You'd have a couple of players on either side just with all the balls, and they would just hang it up. They weren't whipping. They weren't doing anything necessarily with the manipulation at that point. It was all about the flight and then getting the timing of your jump and then your connection point and then
generating
contact.
The power.
Yeah, and then contact points. The more you've seen the flight and your eye, you know, into the ball and your timing of the flight and then your jump, that was where I got better. I didn't need the ball whipped in at full pace and balls going, like Scar said earlier, left, right, across, you know, not even, you know, meeting its reach point, going over the bar 100 times over, and you're standing there as a coach going, this drill's not working, because everyone wants to make their drills look amazing. That's what it's all about for them now, rather than actually the basics, going back to the basics for the young player to learn, right? And just putting the ball in an area and just floating in, and like I'll do it now with my striker sessions. I'll go out there because I want to make sure that the repetition is coming for the individual. So I'll go out and I'll just dink balls, dink balls, dink balls, dink balls. But again, it's like having the bravery to not shut your eyes and all that, because you were taught that even just by throwing the ball. Remember, like you would do like volleys, knee volleys, head it. That type of stuff isn't done. We don't do any of that type of stuff. It's like, get a ball, let's do ball mastery, and let's do 1v1s with a mini goal. 2v2s with a mini goal. Oh, we'll finish with a game 5v5, 2 mini goals. You know, so
It's
like
easy. It's
there's
too easy now just to park all that and leave it alone and forget it. But you see it over the years. It's a part of the game that's missing, and that's the reason why.
Yeah, and we've become a bit snobby as well because we won't put cones down as goals anymore. You know, like it's like, oh, we need the proper goals. You know, type of thing. I don't want balls going here, left, right, and center. Whereas, like for us, like if you didn't have the goals, you just put the cones down and away we went, and that was the game scenario. But we'll play with mini goals, and so we're not creating goal scorers, and not just nines, but actual goal scorers. Some have a good knack, and they develop as they go along. But where are those actually really, really coming from at the moment?
Yeah, but we also mentioned before, Scotty. We've said it before in the conversation. So, how many academies did you actually go to when you were a kid?
Private ones, you mean?
Yeah, private ones.
Zero.
Yeah.
Zero. Didn't need them. But again, they weren't around in our day. But you had your training at home. Sorry, at your club. And again, yeah, you had more. We had imaginations, and we'd go outside. And I had
you play with your mates as well. I used to go down the park and play with mates.
I reckon there's a whole other discussion to talk around elevation of the game outside of Australia and where we're developing or where we're not developing in this country compared to others. And there's so many different ways to look at it. And I think that'll be a fascinating discussion. Talking about number nines and guys that have done it. You saw overnight Kevin Keegan pass away. Any thoughts, guys?
Yeah,
very sad. Was a huge character in the game, both as a player and as a manager. Scotty, you spent a lot of time in the UK. Your thoughts?
Mate, he's an icon of the game. So like you talk about number sevens, and like number seven's my jersey. I love number sevens for Celtics history. Liverpool's had their own as well as Man United. But he was the original number 7, really, when you go to look at it in terms of before King Kenny come along. It was all about Kevin Keegan being the success and winning that European Cup / European Champions League, the first one that Liverpool won. He was part of that sort of time. Tremendous, come from Scunthorpe to Liverpool, and then went on to go to Hamburg to win a Ballon d'Or, to win the Bundesliga, to come back to the UK and play for Newcastle and then manage Newcastle. The guy's just a true icon, managed England, true icon of the game. Yes, he's remembered for the one-liner that everyone will remember when he was a Newcastle manager. But, like, I'm not even a Liverpool fan, but I actually reposted his highlights this morning just to... I think it's quick to forget, and we talk about the modern game, but there's so many good players that have been before us and what they achieved and what he achieved. And he was one out of... that wasn't very fashionable, that went overseas as an Englishman as well to go and play abroad, and was a huge success. They love him at Hamburg to this day. So, you know, there was only a handful that used to do that. There's more doing it now again, but yeah, he broke the mold in that, won a Ballon d'Or. So yeah, like he'll be a huge miss, you know, and a real interesting character as well.
All right, boys. Well, thanks. I mean, we've unpacked a heap there. I think we're going for over an hour. It's really good. It's interesting to get your perspectives. Yes, the World Cup's been great, and we've had a good month and a half at it. But the reality comes back now. We have to think about Australian football, and we're custodians of the game here, no matter how we look at it. So, it's really good to sort of like touch on both sides, both the World Cup and the world stage, and also here in Australia. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your time.
That sounds like we need to do it again, Scuss, because Scotty's always got something to say. That's for sure. Plenty of topics.
He loves it. So yeah, no problem. We'll definitely do it again. It's been lots of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to the real world now. Let it.